What's going on, everyone? Back with another update on the Rockabilly. This is the fourth or fifth episode in this series, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the wiring. Now, everybody's wiring is a little bit different depending on your receiver and what other items you want to put into a build. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing on this one. I'm also deciding to do a couple of things that are beyond the scope of just the stuff that's included in the build package, some stuff that I'm just designing for this one because that's the side of things that I enjoy. So I'm going to flip it around and show you guys exactly where we're at. And there has been some changes since the previous videos. Inside of the Buggy is a bit of a disaster currently, wires everywhere, but there has been a bit of a method to my madness. Now, the change that I was discussing earlier is that I've put in the Furatech Unity 10 2-in-1 system. So this is now the motor and the ESC. The ESC is the front portion of the Outrunner. And then if I rotate this, you can see that it's spinning the Outrunner portion there. So 2-in-1 there. So that means I do not have to add a ESC outside of that, which is nice for a Buggy like this. Looking forward to using it. I've done some programming on it already. It's got the built-in Bluetooth where you can go in and change the rotation. You can set your BEC values. It does have a 5 amp BEC inside, but I am going to be running an external BEC. I've got a Castle BEC 2.0, which that will be handling our BEC duties as far as that goes. With that in mind, if you are running an external BEC, you do need to disconnect the wire from the ESC. That is the center prong. That is the power side of an ESC. So you don't want to feed two inputs of power into a receiver just because the differing voltages can fight each other and cause damage. So disconnect one of them. You can also run like a bypass adapter or things like that if you want, but that's up to you. So I'm going to be running the BEC into my receiver, and that will power my steering servo, my headlights, my dig servo, and I think that's all for those electronics. Now, also, I mentioned this a little bit in previous episodes that I'm going to be doing some telemetry in here, and I've got two telemetry modules here. This is a temperature sensor, and this here is an RPM sensor. The temperature sensor, the wire on the top here is what goes to the sensor, and it goes forward, and then I've got it with a little special clamp built that goes onto the motor plate, and then it holds the probe down on top of the ESC side of that Unity 10. So I'll be able to have real-time telemetry data of the temperature of that ESC. The RPM sensor, that's really an absolutely unnecessary, almost unhelpful version. It's this 2 LED system. One's a transmitter, one's a receiver, and I'm going to run that to probably on top of the front drive shaft for, honestly, it's just something to play with. Again, totally unnecessary, really not that helpful or have much of a purpose. You can pretty much see when this thing's moving. So that is what it is. The headlights on this are a set off of Amazon. They come with their own light controller, but this style kind of matches the style that was used on the real Rockabilly, and there's a mount included in the files so that you can easily bolt these up, just like I've got going here. So it comes back, and the actual light controller is tucked right here. So that's the light controller. That will allow you to switch it on and off from the radio. So it plugs right into the receiver, just one wire, takes care of everything. Brightness on them's okay, nothing crazy bright, but it gets the job done. I mentioned the BEC. I did make an additional mounting piece that sits right here, and that will bolt through this side into the fuel cell, and that can be used on any of the setups, even the downloaded one. So I just need to get this piece uploaded, which I will make available with the rear battery compartment setup, because I do have a larger rear battery compartment that I've come up with here. And this one, I also had talked about Pele's that he had designed earlier. He has one that allows you to put a larger battery on this side, and it converts it to a single seat. I wanted to keep the 2-seat interior, so I decided to go and make a new rear battery setup that will hold a 2200 3S LiPo. And that's what I'm going to be running. So it's a pretty reasonable. This is the front half, this is the back half, and then it gives you a nice large area. And then the rear area is all covered with this lid that's kind of like a combo of a fuel cell cap and then a basket. I machined this. Of course, you'll just, the files will be in there to 3D print it. Just, it's something simple to just kind of disguise the size of the lid is all we were trying to go for, to break it up. And then there'll be a little dial that'll go in here to help lock this into place. And we'll get to that as soon as it's all finished. But for now, I need to get this wired up. Now, I mentioned that I was going to do some things that are a little bit beyond, and that is because I've got a different version of the rear battery tray setup that I'll be running. This is my FlySky receiver. This is one of the 8-channel air receivers, and I made a version of this that kind of has like a false floor. So my receiver is going to go, it's decased, and it will be in through there. So there'll be a floor on top of that, and that's where the battery will sit, but it gives me a spot to tuck my receiver in and out of the way. That's not really going to be a standard setup, and because it takes a pretty specific type of receiver. So probably not something that's going to be super useful to most, but that's the differences that I was talking about. So anyway, I'm going to try to get some of this wiring routed and put into place, and we're going to see how this thing starts to clean up. So the RPM sensor goes down, slips down into that pocket, and then is right over top of the drive shaft. And I've got a little reflective mark on the drive shaft, so that should sense RPM. And then the temperature sensor probe, you can see right there, that little cylindrical diode, kind of an amber color right next to the PCB of the motor. That is our temp sensor. So those are the two telemetry sensors that I do have hooked up, as well as I've got the built-in voltage telemetry sensor wired into the power lead that hooks up to the actual battery. So I'll have battery voltage, I have receiver voltage, temp of the motor, and RPM for whatever reason. But telemetry is all set up. I also made a slight modification to the seat model. You can see that cutout right there. That's so I can get the power wires through, as well as some of the other wires, just to keep everything out of the way of the dig linkage. And now the wiring's all completed and tucked in there. Sensors are in place. I do have a cap that I can, will install over top of here. There's a hole right there to allow me to secure the cap in place. But the 2 sensor board tucks in there. Everything else is in place. Wiring's running between there. This one, I've got a little tongue on there so I can bolt something in between. I did notice that my transmission is about 2 millimeters forward on this one, so I need to make sure that everything kind of matches up with this before I get too crazy. But all tucked in, operational. In the aluminum body pan stuff, or body panel stuff, there's some pieces that go on the bottom here to help close everything in so that none of that wiring can find its way out. Helps just keep everything super closed in, which is a nice little piece of extra plating in there to make sure the car is tucked in as possible. I still haven't done the latch for the battery in the back. One thing that I did do, this Castle BEC has 2 outputs. One is just a power and ground, and one's a power, ground, and signal. I only plugged in the power and ground version, and then the signal one, I added a pass-through into this rear opening, and it comes in up there in the corner, right down in there, up all the way up front. Anyway, and I've just got that pigtail loose in here. So now I can program that BEC super easily with that little plug right there. I don't have to do anything additional to get to it because it's in a bit of a pain, and I don't have a PC here that I can power or program that BEC with. So I was like, well, I need to make sure that I have some way of doing that easily, and that was my solution. So I'll plug in a battery in just for demonstration. I've got the FlySky radio here, and I've got everything programmed. You can see my telemetry on the dash. That's my battery voltage, 11.89, temperature, 75, and receiver voltage, 5.2, because that's the default that Castle BEC is outputting. So as I load up, it will obviously climb the temperature of that ESC, but it's in dig right now. I do, of course, still need to take some of the overdrive out of this thing, but Furotech system is nice and smooth. Everything seems to be functioning properly there. I've got the lights up front programmed on this switch here. Except my dig is on this button, so I just programmed it as a 2-position because that's really how I use the dig the most. On the telemetry side of things, if I go downward, then I can go to my telemetry screen where I've got battery voltage, receiver, the temp, signal strength, noise, and I thought I had the RPM programmed on here already, but I can just go there, choose sensor, select the RPM sensor, and now that will show up. So now as I go, the RPMs of the drive shaft will start to show up. Again, the RPM sensor is very pointless for what I'm doing. If I put it on I initially tested it on the Outrunner, but the Outrunner's got like font around the outside that was triggering the infrared too much. So it was throwing my RPMs way off. So I decided to just go with the drive shaft for now. Next step from here is body work. So I've got the molds printing for the carbon fiber hood. I've got the aluminum skins already here for the sides and the roof. So that's what I have left to accomplish. Before I wrap this one up though, I do want to install some of the tube plugs. So these are available on the Vanquish site. I drill out my tubes to a 3mm with a little 3mm drill bit, and then from there I'll use some Loctite retaining compound, which is 638. I'll put that on them, put it in, and basically just let it set, and they'll be as close to permanent as I need them to. So I took the shocks off so I could get a better angle at a couple of those tube ends there, but I'm going to go through, do that, get the front and rear done, and then that will kind of finish up that detail. Those tube plugs just help to clean everything up, especially once you get the hood and everything on. Just the only thing you see. It's a nice little added touch.